Welcome back, friends, for more in the special series we are dropping each day this week on the Uplevel Dairy podcast. Catching up with our guests from last year who shared their one word for 2023 12 months ago, and finding out who stuck with their word, who's been transformed by it, and who can't wait to dig into their new word for 2024 on the Uplevel Dairy podcast. This is the podcast for dairy farm owners, managers, and advisors who are committed to profitability, sustainability, and excellence. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen, and it's my mission to bring you the conversations that will uplevel your skill set and your mindset so you can be a top performer in the dairy farming business. And if you recall our conversation with Tera Baker from Nedap 1 year ago, you might remember that she was in the mode to build in 2023. As a young farmer alongside her husband, they were investing in building their own farming enterprise, building their family with the addition of their first child, and building out solutions for dairy farmers through Nedap. How did it go? Let's find out. Enjoy this conversation with Tera Baker. Tera Baker from Nedap, you joined us a year ago, to share your one word for 2023. And so we are back today to have you tell us again, what was that word? What was your word, Tera, from 2023?
My word was build.
Build. That's a small word with a big meaning. And so tell us, what did build end up meaning for you in the past 12 months?
Well, Peggy, first of all, it is mind-blowing to me that we are talking about this conversation we had right at the start of 2023 as being basically a year ago now. To me, this year has just absolutely flown off the shelves. I was not ready for it, but here I am just trying to, I guess, figure out how to kind of restock for going into 2024. And I think that build did thread through as my mantra for the year. I think that I was so busy in build mode that maybe I didn't pause and reflect on that process. So it is good to sit down now and kind of look at what happened last year and how do I roll into 24.
Yeah. And well, let's use this as an opportunity to really be able to appreciate and reflect on what happened for you in 2023. And as I recall, when we sat down a year ago and build was a word that really spoke to you, some of the things that you had on your mind at that point in time was, for one, building a family. You had a little baby girl who's now a bigger baby girl at the time. And you talked about building a legacy with the farm that you and your husband have together. And you also talked about building out in your career and your team with Nedap. And so just do a little bit of a recap and a reflection on those areas.
I guess we'll just go down the list, bing, bang, boom, of what you rattled off there.
Baby farm business.
Baby farm business. Baby's big. Baby's walking. Baby's starting to talk. I just got on a wait list for when she starts school at age 5. So 2026/7, I think, is the school year we're on a wait list for. My husband saw the email come through and he goes, "What in the heck?" I said, "It's the world we live in now, bud. So failing to plan is planning to fail. We can't screw up her future." So that's where we're at there. She's wonderful. She's been a blessing and a joy.
That's baby Violet, right?
Yes, yep. Yes. And then what was the next one on? You said family farm. Yes. So husband and I and my parents have been continually trying to take steps towards more intentional organization. That kind of succession planning has been a continuation. We kind of officially have a seat at the table on part of the pieces of the farm now. So we're working in formally there. We put together an action plan for adding more land base. And so we have added some land base for this growing season that we're just coming out of, and then we have some more land coming in for next growing season. So that was a little scary. Old school farmers don't want to pursue land. They want it to fall into their lap. They don't want to ruffle the neighborhood. But my husband and I, coming in as young bucks, said, we don't have decades to wait for land to fall into our lap. So we need to be proactive. So that's a whole nother thing that we could unpack. But
well, take a minute and just tell us a little bit about what your farming operation looks like.
Yeah, so we split off from the family's dairy and crop farm 5 or so years years ago now. So we kind of have went through this switch to, we built a new grain setup, are strictly cash crop farmers now, and then also kind of started a precision ag business with that. I'm dealing auto steer and potentially looking at some other things for that portfolio. But anywho, as we split off to be just cropping, we had to, kind of figure out what we're going to do there. We took some leased land with us. We took some owned land with us when we separated from the original family farm, and now we're just looking to expand that footprint a little bit.
Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, and so you've touched on a couple of things that I know a lot of our listeners are going to relate to. The succession planning,
Yeah.
the growing your land base and really building that land asset.
Yeah.
Any key takeaways or any key insights from your experience on that succession planning side that you think others out there would benefit from hearing?
I guess I give credit to my parents when they broke out and started this new setup. First of all, we built a greenfield facility. So my husband and I were just creating a slide deck about what happened, and we literally knocked down an active cornfield to build a grain setup the first fall that everything changed. So there was just a lot going on there. But my parents were really proactive, and they set up LLCs with each of the different pieces of the business to create easier silos, I guess. So the equipment has its own LLC, the operations have their own LLC, the land has its own LLC. Like everything is separated out, which makes it easier for us to become shareholders in just one LLC at a time and kind of build that out. It also gives them kind of a protection firewall, I guess, if you will, because most farms, like the last thing that they want to give up is land, right? So it gives the parents an opportunity to kind of keep hold of that while letting everything transition over to us in the meantime to give them that security blanket through end of life.
Wow. So you've really been able to put a strategy to this process of succession. And that is a big one that so many other people are facing and navigating right now. Who's helped you? Have you found a good resource or a good, person to be involved in those conversations and to be able to kind of oversee or delegate or just lead those tough conversations?
Oh, there's a book of them. My mother has made this like her PhD of study for this like decade of life. So I give a lot of credit to her and just want to be proactive. And part of that was because my parents they came from a generation that had no proactiveness in this. And so I grew up in a large family farm that had a big footprint in the community and have watched that kind of deteriorate just because of lack of planning from my grandparental generation. Okay. And so my parent generation said, no, we want to break out and salvage the piece that we have control over and then be smart and proactive in what we do with it for the future. And then let my husband and I kind of be active in that conversation as we structure it and go forward. So lots of different resources. I think there's probably at least 5 different lawyers that we have on speed dial that have helped us with things. We switched our accountant during this time. We had an accountant that was a great lady for a million years and a family friend and handed down her kids' clothes to us and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, she probably just wasn't the most efficient and strategic with the agriculture mindset of how to do things. So we've switched now to an ag accountant that's really good and has been really helpful. So that's been a big one. And then just going to conferences. I mean, every time we listen to Jolene Brown speak, we're like, yep, that happened. Yep, that happened.
So this has also been a year for building out your team to support the succession process.
Yes, for sure. And just recognizing that sometimes you have to make change. Like I say, the accountant that was a family friend, and that was a hard thing to say, guys, we need to make a switch. Like, and then how many boxes of Christmas cookies and everything do we have to bring to soften the blow that we're going to have to make a change? And so, yeah.
Yeah, well, change is hard, but you guys are bold and brave in building in 2023. And so, okay, so speak to the business side. What's it meant in your career life outside of family life and farm life? What has Build meant for you and your role at Nedap this year?
Sure. So Nedap as a tech company is fastly changing and growing. It kind of comes with the nature of the business, which has been really good and has also facilitated my mantra of build, right? Because, we're having to build our niche in the business and our niche in the industry and the reputation and all of the pieces that come with that. So that's been really cool. And moving forward into the future, looking to kind of go on a continuation generation of build as far as what my role is with the company and the stamp that I'm able to leave on it.
Yeah, excellent. Well, you've really pulled your word into several areas of your life. And so I know one of the questions that I asked you a year ago was, would you want to say a year from now about what some of your wins were or where things are at for you? Just take this moment to reflect as well. What are a couple of the biggest wins in any of these areas or beyond that from the past year?
The family farm standpoint, and my husband and I kind of being a little bit entrepreneurial and business together with that growth and figuring out how to expand our footprint land wise is obviously a big initiative. We've taken some small steps towards that, and then we'll take some bigger ones here as we transition to the next growing season. But we also pursue the leadership program, and so we just completed phase 1 of that, and it's hosted by American Soybean Association and Corteva Agroscience. And so we were able to go out to the Johnston, Iowa location of Corteva and go through phase 1, which was a lot of self-reflection as individuals, as a couple, as farmers. And then we'll complete the rest of the program in Houston, Texas for the Commodity Classic here in a couple months. And so that was really cool just because that was the first time that my spouse and I had gone through something like that, and then kind of woven the business piece into it. And just overall, like, we now have a Snapchat group of young farmers from all over the country that have very similar interests and ambitions. And so there's just a lot of neat things that are kind of offshooting from that process.
Yeah. Oh, that is fantastic. It sounds like it has been a year of some great growth and building some great things, including some relationships with other people that have some things in common with you, developing their leadership skills and stepping into this next generation of farming. And so, okay, so we've just spent the last few minutes in reflection mode. Now let's look forward into 2024. And is there a word that jumps out to you for what you want to bring into 2024?
Okay, well, this had been floating in my mind. Well, two things had been floating in my mind. One is converge.
Ooh.
And the other is connect. But I think I want to go with converge.
Ooh, and tell me about that word. Why did that one come up on your radar?
I like the word. I think that converge as a whole, it kind of represents like things that already exist and finding that meeting point. And so if you think about a puzzle, the pieces are there, but when you put them all together, that's where it comes to life. And so I feel like maybe I spent this last year getting a lot of the pieces built, and now I can spend this year weaving them together.
So fast forward a year from now, we're sitting here again at the end of December 2024. What do you want to be saying about how the year went and what Converge brought to fruition for you?
Well, from a company work standpoint with Nedap, I've got a couple of new irons in the fire that I can't officially speak on yet. But come this time next year, I'm hoping that I can be launching fireworks about them. So let's touch base on that again, and we'll see if I remember what they were. But hopefully there are fireworks about them. So from a work standpoint, a couple of really cool things in the hopper. And then, like I say, from a personal standpoint, trying to bring together the pieces of our business, right?
Yeah. So Converge is really this transition from the build phase of 2023 to bringing it all together, putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, and looking at a pretty big picture with some spoiler alerts and teasers of what could be some exciting stuff for our friends in the dairy industry to hear from you, Nedap, in the next year.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any final thoughts on your one word, Tera?
Final thoughts on my one word. Hopefully I stick to it. Maybe there needs to be a mid-year check-in. Maybe Peggy needs to have an accountability group.
I would love to have an accountability group. So we might just have to do that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Tera, for sharing your one word from 2023, build, your word going into 2024, converge, and the exciting things that we get to keep tabs on you and your growth personally and professionally in the year to come.
Thank you, Peggy. And I would just like to offer compliments and thank you from the industry for what you have built with the Uplevel Dairy podcast. It is a voice that we needed to hear, and I hear people chattering about it all the time. So thank you for doing the good work for our industry.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot. You just heard from Tera Baker at Nedap on how the word build came to life for her, her family, their farm, and her career throughout 2023. And we can't wait to see what comes together as things continue to converge in 2024. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and thank you for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. If you love these episodes, make sure to get them in your inbox. And it's easy to do that. Just head over to upleveldairy.com, sign up for the Uplevel Dairy community, and you will know each time a new episode drops.